The restaurant glowed with golden light that spilled across the marble floors like liquid warmth. Silver cutlery shimmered, glasses sparkled, and quiet music whispered through the air. Among the rows of white linens and polished shoes, a small black waitress moved carefully between tables. Her name was Anna. She was 9 years old but carried herself with the stillness of someone who had learned not to take up too much space. Every step she took was measured, every breath gentle, as if the air itself might shatter. Tonight was not an ordinary night. The wealthy were gathered to celebrate a new exhibition sponsored by Gregory Langford, a billionaire known for his art collection and his composure. On the main wall, under a halo of warm light, hung a painting soft strokes of dusk blue and amber gold, the kind of beauty that made people stop talking. The signature in the corner read, E. Cole. The curator announced that it was a rare piece from an unknown artist who had died years ago. Cameras flashed, glasses lifted. Applause rose like a tide. Gregory stood beside the painting, smiling with pride. Anna stood a few tables away, holding a tray of crystal glasses, her eyes drawn to the brushwork. She knew that curve of the skyline, the small crooked lamppost in the corner, the way the color of the sky melted into gray. Her heart beat faster. She remembered sitting beside her father while he painted it. She remembered the smell of turpentine, the soft hum he always made when he mixed colors. Her throat tightened. The tray trembled in her hands. One glass slipped and caught the light before she steadied it. Nobody noticed. The curator spoke again, praising Gregory for his taste and generosity. Gregory raised his glass in response, his voice deep and assured. "Art," he said, "is the only thing that survives us." At that moment, Anna's voice broke the silence, soft but clear enough to slice through the music. "Sir, that is my father's drawing." The words hung in the air, weightless and impossible. A ripple moved through the crowd. Forks froze. Conversation stopped. Gregory turned toward the sound. The tray in Anna's hands shook again. She looked up, her small voice trembling. "My father painted that." The chandelier light caught the glass in Gregory's hand. His fingers loosened. The glass slipped, struck the marble, and shattered into 100 glittering pieces. The room fell silent. Even the music seemed to hold its breath. Anna did not move. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it echo inside her chest. Gregory's eyes met hers, searching for a lie and finding only the reflection of the painting behind her. Somewhere inside him, something cold cracked open, and for the first time in years, the sound of his own heartbeat frightened him. He whispered, almost to himself, "What did you say?" Anna's small voice answered again, steady now, "That is my father's drawing." And in that moment, before anyone spoke or moved, the truth began to breathe. The silence after the crash stretched longer than anyone expected. The crystal shards glimmered on the marble floor like fallen stars. Gregory Langford stared at them as if they held an answer, his jaw tight, his face pale. The guests exchanged uneasy glances. A few whispered, thinking the girl had spoken out of turn. The restaurant manager hurried forward, his polished shoes tapping sharply, his smile too bright. "Sir, please forgive her," he said quickly. "She is new. I will remove her right away." He reached for Anna's arm, but Gregory raised his hand. "Wait." His voice carried the quiet authority of a man used to being obeyed. The manager froze, his hand half raised. Gregory turned to Anna. "What did you say?" His tone was calm, but the tremor beneath it betrayed him. Anna swallowed, gripping the tray tighter. "I said that is my father's drawing." Her eyes flicked toward the painting again, the blue and amber horizon glowing softly above the dining crowd. A murmur rippled through the guests. Someone chuckled under their breath. Another sighed, annoyed by the interruption. The manager bent toward Gregory. "She must be mistaken, sir. Children say strange things. Please, allow me. How old are you?" Gregory asked suddenly. "9," she whispered. His gaze sharpened. "And your father's name?" "Elijah Cole." The sound of that name landed heavy in the air. Gregory's pupils widened. For a moment, his composure faltered. "Elijah Cole?" he repeated, almost to himself. "Yes, sir," Anna said. "He painted that when I was little. He said it was his favorite." The manager's smile thinned. "Enough, young lady," he hissed, lowering his voice. You are upsetting our guests. Anna blinked quickly, but she did not step back. Gregory's mind churned, fragments of memory surfacing like bubbles in deep water. He remembered a man with paint on his sleeves, laughing beside an unfinished canvas, a man who spoke softly about color and forgiveness. Elijah Cole had vanished years ago. The fire in his studio had been ruled an accident. Gregory had attended the memorial himself. He remembered the smell of smoke, the ache of guilt he had buried under decades of business meetings and charity galas. Now this child was standing before him claiming to be his daughter. It was impossible. Yet her eyes, there was something in them, the same patient depth that Elijah had carried. The crowd began to stir again, the moment stretching too long for their comfort. A woman at the next table whispered, "It is just a child looking for attention." Someone else laughed nervously. The manager leaned in again. "Mr. Langford, perhaps you would like to step away. I will handle this." Gregory nodded absently, still staring at Anna. Then he spoke, his voice soft but firm. "Bring her to the office." The manager blinked. "Sir?" "My office," Gregory repeated. "Now." The room fell quiet again. Anna's hands trembled as she set the tray down on the nearest table. The sound of the glasses settling seemed louder than it should have been. She followed the manager through the corridor lined with portraits of donors and patrons. The carpet muffled their steps, but her small sneakers squeaked faintly with every pace. The office door closed behind them with a muted click. Gregory stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. The hum of distant traffic filled the silence. Finally, he turned around. "Sit down." Anna hesitated, then perched on the edge of a chair. The manager stood near the door, clearly uncomfortable. "You can leave us," Gregory said without turning. "Sir, are you sure?" "I said leave us." When the door closed, Gregory leaned against his desk, studying the child. "You said your father was Elijah Cole." "Yes, sir." "Where is he now?" Her hands folded in her lap. "He passed away 3 years ago. My grandma says his heart gave out." Gregory's throat tightened. "And that painting? How did it end up here?" "A man came once," Anna said. "He said he wanted to buy some of my dad's art to help us. My dad said no, that his paintings were not ready. But the man took some of them anyway when we were moving. Grandma said not to talk about it." Gregory's pulse quickened. "What was the man's name?" "I do not know. He wore a ring with a lion on it." Gregory looked down at his own hand. The same gold lion ring gleamed there. His breath caught. He remembered that day the visit to Elijah's studio, the argument about ownership. He had offered to buy Elijah's work for an exhibition. Elijah refused, accusing him of trying to control art the way he controlled people. They never spoke again. The painting was delivered years later by a collector. Gregory had never questioned it. Now, staring at the child's small hands and steady eyes, he felt something heavy collapse inside him. "Why did you say it was your father's drawing?" he asked quietly. "Because I watched him paint it," Anna said. "He told me the light in the sky was the hardest part. He said if I ever saw it again, I would know he was still with me." Her voice wavered. "When I saw it on the wall, I knew." Gregory turned away, pressing his hand to his mouth. The city outside blurred. For the first time in years, the tight armor around his chest cracked. Behind him, Anna sat still, her legs swinging just above the floor. She looked small against the tall leather chair, but there was no fear in her posture, only honesty. The clock ticked softly. When he finally spoke again, his voice was rough. "Does your grandmother know you work here?" "Yes, sir. She says it helps with rent." "How long have you worked here?" "A few weeks." Gregory exhaled slowly. The realization that this child had been walking these halls unnoticed pierced him more sharply than guilt ever had. He looked at her again. "You said your father died 3 years ago?" She nodded. "He had been sick for a while." Gregory swallowed hard. The image of Elijah's laughing face flickered before him like a photograph burning at the edges. He wanted to ask more, but the words stuck in his throat. At last he said, "You can go home for tonight. Tell your grandmother that Mr. Langford will visit tomorrow." Anna's eyes widened slightly. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," he said softly. "You did something right." She stood, hesitated, then gave a small nod. As she left the office, Gregory turned toward the painting hanging on the wall behind his desk. The colors of dusk and amber looked different now, as if the light itself had shifted. He whispered the name he had not spoken aloud in years, Elijah. Outside the office, Anna walked down the corridor alone. The night air met her as she stepped through the service door, cool and gentle. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. She looked up at the city lights and thought about her father's promise. That truth, like color, could never really fade. Behind her, Gregory Langford stood in the silence of his office, the sound of shattering glass still echoing faintly in his mind, and for the first time since that night 10 years ago, he wondered if forgiveness could still find him. Gregory Langford did not sleep that night. The city outside his penthouse was a storm of glittering lights and faint sirens, but none of it reached him. He sat in his study surrounded by framed contracts, sculptures, and the silent judgment of his own success. On his desk lay a single photograph, aged and curled at the corners. In it, Elijah Cole stood smiling beside a half-finished painting, his shirt splattered with color, his eyes alive with something Gregory had not seen in himself for years' hope. Gregory remembered that day clearly. They had argued about art, about ownership, about truth. Elijah had said, "Art is not bought, Greg. It is shared." Gregory had laughed then, dismissing it as idealism. Now the laughter felt like a sin. He closed his eyes, hearing again the small voice of the child saying, "That is my father's drawing." He could not ignore it. He would not. By morning, he had made a decision. At sunrise, his driver pulled up in front of a modest building tucked behind a grocery store on the south side of the city. The air smelled of rain and dust. Children ran past with backpacks, their shoes splashing through puddles. Gregory stepped out in his dark suit, out of place among the chipped fences and fading murals. A woman in a red shawl stood at the gate, her silver hair tied in a knot. She looked up as he approached. "You must be Mrs. Cole," he said quietly. The woman studied him with guarded eyes. "I am her grandmother," she said. "Who are you?" "Gregory Langford. Anna works at the restaurant I sponsor." The woman's gaze sharpened. "What do you want from her?" Gregory hesitated. "I came to talk about her father." The suspicion in her face softened just a little. She turned and gestured for him to follow. Inside, the apartment was small but clean. A faint smell of lavender, mixed with the scent of paint and old wood. Canvases leaned against the walls, covered with sheets. A coffee mug filled with brushes sat on the counter. On the table lay a stack of sketches, faded but still vivid with emotion. He drew until his hands gave out, the woman said it helped him breathe. Gregory's throat tightened. He was a good man. He was, she said, too good for this world sometimes. Anna appeared from the hallway, rubbing her eyes. She wore a sweater 2 sizes too big, her hair tied back in uneven puffs. When she saw Gregory, she froze. "You came." Gregory nodded. "I said I would." She looked uncertain. "Are you mad at me for what I said?" "No," he said softly. "You told the truth." The woman poured tea into mismatched cups and set them down. The steam curled between them. "He never stopped talking about you," she said suddenly. Gregory blinked. "About me?" "Yes. Said you were the man who believed in him once. Said you gave him courage to paint again after his wife died." Gregory stared at his reflection in the tea. "He said that?" "He did. But later he stopped mentioning your name. Said some truths were too heavy to carry." The room fell quiet. Outside, a siren wailed and faded. Gregory stood, walking toward a canvas covered with a white sheet. "May I?" The grandmother nodded. He lifted the fabric. Underneath was a painting of a boy holding a lamp in a dark room. The light from the lamp reached only halfway across the floor, as if waiting for something or someone to complete it. "He called that one, the unfinished light," she said. "He said it was about you." Gregory felt the weight of those words sink deep. He turned toward Anna, who was watching him carefully. "Did he ever tell you why he painted the sky that color in the other one?" She nodded. "He said it was because sometimes the sky remembers before people do." The simplicity of it cut through him. He wanted to say something, but emotion caught in his chest. He looked at her again, this child who carried the truth he had tried so hard to forget. "Anna," he said, "your father and I were friends. I thought I was helping him. I did not know what my choices would cost him. Anna's small voice broke the silence. He said he forgave you. Gregory's eyes widened. He did? She nodded. He told Grandma that people who break things can still fix them if they start with honesty. The words hung in the air like a blessing. Gregory took a long breath. Would you let me help you now? Not out of pity, out of respect for him. The grandmother folded her hands. Help how? I want to restore his paintings, Gregory said, and tell his story the way it should have been told. The world forgot him because I let it. That ends now. Anna looked at her grandmother, then back at him. You really mean that? I do. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Then you can help, but you have to promise not to change the colors. Dad said the colors are the truth. Gregory smiled faintly. I will not change a single shade. For the first time that day, Anna smiled too, a small fragile curve of the mouth that felt like sunrise. The grandmother exhaled, a sound that was half relief, half prayer. Gregory looked around the room once more, his eyes resting on a small framed sketch near the window. It was a portrait of a little girl holding a paintbrush larger than her hand. Underneath it, in Elijah's handwriting, were the words, "For when the truth grows old enough to speak." The message struck him like a quiet thunderclap. As he stepped outside, the light of morning spilled across the cracked pavement. The city noise returned, but it felt different now, softer, somehow kinder. Behind him, Anna stood at the doorway holding the sketch, her eyes bright in the sunlight. Gregory turned back for a moment. Your father was right, he said. The sky does remember. She smiled again. Then maybe it remembers you too. He nodded, unable to speak, and walked toward the waiting car. Each step felt like part of a long overdue journey home. The next afternoon, the gray clouds hung low over the city as Gregory Langford stood once more before the modest building on the south side. The air carried the faint smell of rain and smoke from a nearby bakery. He had not visited such a neighborhood in years, not since the days when he and Elijah had wandered streets like this in search of inspiration, sketching strangers and sunsets on scraps of paper. Now he was here again, not as a collector or a businessman, but as a man trying to mend something invisible that had been broken long ago. Anna opened the door before he could knock. She wore the same oversized sweater as before, but her hair was brushed neatly, and her small smile held a kind of quiet readiness. Grandma said you would come, she said. Gregory nodded. I keep my promises. Inside, the apartment felt warmer this time. The grandmother was stirring soup on the stove, and soft gospel music played from an old radio. The rhythm of ordinary life wrapped around him like a blanket he did not know he missed. On the small table by the window, several of Elijah's paintings had been laid out. Some were complete, others only half finished, the paint dry but cracked with age. Gregory removed his gloves and reached for the first one. He used linseed oil, he murmured. You can tell by the sheen. The grandmother looked up from the stove. He said you taught him that trick. Gregory smiled faintly. Maybe he improved on it. Anna climbed onto a chair beside him, watching every move. Are these going to the museum? She asked. Someday, Gregory said. But first, they need care. They have been waiting too long. He picked up a soft brush from the table and began gently sweeping dust from one canvas. The strokes of the brush released a faint scent of old paint and time. Anna leaned closer. It is like he is still here, she whispered. In every color, Gregory said quietly. They worked together in silence for a while. The grandmother joined them, handing Gregory a cloth. He accepted it with gratitude. For a moment, the three of them formed an image so simple and human that it silenced every echo of wealth and power that used to define him. When the rain began outside, the sound on the window felt like applause. After an hour, Anna brought out a small wooden box. Dad kept this locked, she said, but Grandma said it is time. She placed it on the table between them. Gregory hesitated, then opened it carefully. Inside were several folded papers and a small silver keychain shaped like a star. The first paper he unfolded was a letter addressed in Elijah's handwriting. The ink had faded, but the words were clear. Gregory, if you ever find this, know that I did not hate you. I only wished you had seen what I saw. Art is not about owning light. It is about keeping it alive when everything else fades. Gregory's eyes stung. Anna watched him, her hands clasped tightly together. "He wrote that for you," she said softly. He nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "He always believed you would come back someday." The grandmother sat down beside them. He waited until the end. Gregory folded the letter slowly, holding it as if it might dissolve. "He deserved more than what I gave him," he said. "We cannot change what happened," the grandmother replied, "but you can choose what happens next." He looked at Anna again. "What do you want to happen next?" She thought for a long moment before answering. "I want people to know his name, not because he was my dad, but because his paintings make people feel like the sun can still rise." Her words struck him like truth itself. He nodded. "Then we will make that happen." Later that evening, when the rain had stopped, Gregory stepped outside with Anna and her grandmother. The street was slick and shining under the streetlights. Across the road, a small art supply store stood closed, its window display filled with brushes and sketchbooks. Anna looked at it and said, "He used to take me there every Saturday." Gregory smiled. "Then we will go again, you and I." She looked up at him uncertainly. "Even though I am just a waitress?" "Especially because of that," he said. "Your father worked in places like this too. Art does not care where it comes from. It only cares that someone listens." Anna smiled, a small but steady light in the dim evening. The grandmother slipped her arm around her shoulders. "It is getting late," she said. "We should go in." Gregory nodded. "Tomorrow, I will send a truck to move these paintings. They will be cleaned and restored by professionals, but one of them should stay here." He pointed to the smallest canvas, the one with the boy and the lamp. "This belongs in its home." The grandmother's eyes glistened. "Thank you." Gregory turned toward the street, the puddles reflecting the city lights. He thought of Elijah, of the nights they had argued, of the mornings they had painted side by side in silence. He had spent so many years building towers of glass and metal, but now, in this humble place, he felt closer to truth than he ever had before. As he reached his car, Anna called after him, "Mr. Langford?" He turned. "Yes?" She held up the silver keychain. "He said this was for the person who would unlock his dream." Gregory smiled gently. "Then he must have meant you." She shook her head. "No, he meant both of us." He stood still for a long moment, the sound of rainwater dripping from the roof mixing with the hum of distant traffic. Then he nodded. "Both of us," he repeated. As he drove away, the reflection of the apartment lights followed him in the wet pavement, shimmering like brushstrokes across a living canvas. Inside, Anna sat by the window holding the keychain. The city beyond looked enormous, but she no longer felt small. Somewhere in the echo of the night, she could almost hear her father's voice whispering that light, once shared, never really dies. The next morning came with the faint glow of sunlight filtering through the gray sky. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets shining like polished stone. Gregory Langford stood in his office by the tall glass window, holding a cup of black coffee that had long gone cold. His thoughts were not on the contracts waiting for his signature, but on the small apartment across town where Elijah Cole's art had waited for years to be seen. He placed the cup down and called his assistant. "Prepare a vehicle," he said. "We are going to the restoration center, and send someone to help transport several paintings from the south side. Handle them with care." His assistant hesitated. "Is this a business project, sir?" Gregory looked out the window at the city that seemed to stretch endlessly. "No," he said quietly. "It is a promise." 2 hours later, he arrived at the apartment with 2 professional art handlers. The grandmother met him at the door, her eyes kind but cautious. Anna stood beside her, holding the small silver keychain like it was a treasure. "You really came back," she said. "I told you I would." Gregory stepped inside, careful not to disturb the canvases that leaned against the wall. "We will take them to the gallery downtown for cleaning," he explained. "Every piece will be documented and insured. Your father's name will be restored with them." The grandmother nodded slowly. He would have liked that. As the workers gently packed the paintings into crates lined with soft foam, Anna watched with wide eyes. When the last one was sealed, she looked at the empty wall and whispered, "It looks strange without them." Gregory crouched beside her. "Walls are just waiting rooms for new light," he said. She looked up at him curiously. "Did my dad say that too?" He smiled faintly. He taught me more than I knew. They stepped outside together. The truck was parked by the curb, its back doors open, the crates secured inside. The grandmother handed Anna a small bag. "Take this with you," she said. "Lunch and some cookies." Anna grinned. "We are going to the big building, right?" "Yes," Gregory said. "The restoration center first, then maybe the gallery if you are not too tired." She shook her head quickly. "I never get tired of seeing paintings." The drive across the city was quiet, filled with the hum of tires and the rhythm of traffic lights. Anna pressed her face to the window, watching the skyline shift from narrow brick homes to towering glass buildings. Gregory glanced at her reflection in the window. "You remind me of him," he said softly. "Not just how you look, but how you notice things others miss." She turned to him. "Like what?" "Like how light moves," he said. "Your father once told me that light is honest because it never hides where it comes from." Anna smiled. "Then I want to learn how to paint it too." "You will," he said. At the restoration center, the workers carefully carried the crates inside. The main hall smelled of varnish, old wood, and the faint sweetness of linseed oil. Specialists in white gloves greeted them, bowing slightly to Gregory but smiling warmly at Anna. "These are your father's works?" one of them asked. Anna nodded proudly. "Yes, sir." The man smiled again. "They are beautiful. We will treat them with the care they deserve." As the paintings were unpacked, the colors seemed to come alive again under the bright lights. One canvas in particular caught everyone's attention. It was a portrait of a man sitting beside a window, half in shadow, half in sunlight. The face was unmistakable. It was Gregory Langford, younger, with a weary expression that time had erased. Anna stared at it, then turned to Gregory. "That is you." He nodded slowly. "He painted it the year I left. I never knew he finished it." She stepped closer, studying the brushstrokes. "He made you look like someone who wanted to say sorry." Gregory's breath caught. "Maybe he did." The restoration expert approached. "This one needs special care. It has a faint burn mark at the edge. It must have been near a fire once." Gregory nodded. "Yes," he whispered. "It survived." He looked at Anna, just like he wanted his truth to survive. Hours passed as the specialists examined each piece. Anna sat nearby, her legs swinging off the chair, watching every movement with the quiet fascination of a child who understood the weight of what was happening. Gregory joined her, sitting on the bench beside her. "When I was your age," he said, "I thought art was only for people with money. Your father showed me it was for people with hearts." She looked up. "So you were wrong." "Completely," he said, smiling. She grinned back. "Then you are learning." He laughed softly, the sound surprising even him. When the sun began to dip outside the wide windows, the grandmother called on the phone to check on them. Anna told her about the bright lights, the careful gloves, and the man who said her father's colors would live forever. After she hung up, Gregory stood. "There is something else I need to do," he said. "What?" she asked. He reached into his pocket and took out a folded document. "Your father once applied for a scholarship fund I started. It was for artists who could not afford materials. His letter was denied. I never saw it until today." Anna frowned slightly. "Why are you telling me that?" "Because," he said, handing her the letter, "I am reopening that fund. And I am naming it after him. The Elijah Cole Foundation. It will help children who see the world the way he did." Her eyes widened. "You mean like me?" "Exactly like you," Gregory said. "You can help me choose who it helps." Anna held the paper carefully, her voice almost a whisper. "Grandma says promises are like colors. They fade if you do not take care of them." Gregory nodded. "Then we will take care of this one together." They walked out into the evening, the city washed in gold light. The truck doors closed behind them with a soft clang, carrying Elijah Cole's art toward a new beginning. As they drove away, Anna looked back at the fading building and said, "Dad would be happy now." Gregory looked at her reflection in the mirror. "He would be proud," he said. The car rolled on through the quiet streets, and somewhere between the echoes of the city and the hum of the tires, both of them felt, for the first time, that the light Elijah had painted was still following them home. The following morning began with the first true sunlight the city had seen in days. It streamed across Gregory Langford's study, catching the edges of the polished desk and the single envelope that lay on top of it. Inside were the signed documents for the Elijah Cole Foundation. Gregory had not slept much. His mind kept replaying the sight of Anna sitting beside her father's paintings, her small hands tracing the edges of the canvas like she was trying to hold on to him through color and memory. He knew what he needed to do next. The paintings had been restored beautifully overnight, their colors breathing again, and he wanted Anna and her grandmother to see them before they were moved for the public exhibition. But when he called that morning, no one answered. Concern rippled through him. After a few tries, he decided to drive there himself. The streets were still damp from the rain, shining like liquid mirrors. When he arrived, the small apartment door was locked. He knocked several times, and finally the neighbor across the hall opened her door. "Are you looking for Mrs. Cole?" she asked. "Yes," Gregory said. "Is everything all right?" The woman nodded slowly. They left early. The grandmother was not feeling well. The little girl took her to the clinic on Maple Avenue. Gregory thanked her and immediately drove there. The clinic was small and quiet, the kind of place where time seemed to move slower. Inside, Anna sat in a chair near the reception desk, holding a paper cup of water. When she saw him, her face brightened, but her eyes looked tired. "Mr. Langford," she said softly. "Grandma is resting. The doctor said she needs to stay for a few days." Gregory's voice was gentle. "Is she going to be all right?" Anna nodded, though uncertainty flickered in her expression. "They said she will be if she rests, but we do not have anyone else at home." Gregory crouched beside her. "Then you will not have to be alone. I will make sure you are both taken care of." She blinked, unsure how to respond. "I do not want to be a problem." "You are not a problem," he said. "You are a promise." He spoke the word carefully, the same way Elijah had once spoken about truth and art. After arranging for her grandmother's care and covering the medical costs, Gregory brought Anna back to the gallery where the restored paintings were waiting. When they entered, the lights were soft and golden, the air filled with the faint scent of varnish and new beginnings. Anna froze in place. Before her, the paintings hung in perfect alignment, each one alive with color. Her father's name, Elijah Cole, was printed neatly on a bronze plaque beneath every frame. "He has a name here now," she whispered. "He always had one," Gregory said. "The world just forgot to say it out loud." She walked slowly from one painting to the next, her small fingers hovering near each surface but never touching. She stopped before the portrait of Gregory, the one painted years ago, the one that had survived the fire. The restored light made the eyes in the portrait look alive again, thoughtful, almost forgiving. "He painted you like someone who needed a second chance," Anna said. Gregory exhaled deeply. "He gave me one before I even asked for it." She looked at him then, studying his face the way her father once studied colors. "You look different now," she said. "You do not look like someone who forgot." The words struck something deep within him. "That is because you reminded me," he said. She smiled faintly and moved to the next painting. It was a landscape, the same horizon that had started everything, the sky melting from blue into amber, the crooked lamppost, the same detail she had recognized at the restaurant that night. "This was his favorite," she said. "He used to say the sky was telling a story no one was patient enough to read." Gregory stepped closer. "Then we will give people the time to read it now." He turned toward her. "Anna, your father's work will open next month at the Langford Gallery. The event will be public, and I want you and your grandmother there. He deserves to be celebrated through the eyes of the people who loved him." She hesitated. "But what if people ask who I am?" "You will tell them the truth," he said. "You are the reason this story was found again." She nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "Grandma says truth walks slow, but it always arrives." Gregory smiled. "Your grandmother is a wise woman." They spent the next few hours at the gallery, reviewing the arrangement of the pieces. Gregory took notes as Anna suggested small changes. "That one should be higher," she said. "Dad said the light always comes from above." He adjusted the frame accordingly, smiling at how naturally she carried her father's eye for balance. When it grew late, he offered to drive her back to the clinic. On the way, the city lights stretched across the windshield like streaks of gold. Anna leaned her head against the seat and watched them blur together. "Do you think my dad knows?" she asked quietly. Gregory's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "I think he knows everything you have done. I think he is proud." She smiled without looking away from the window. "Then I am glad." When they reached the clinic, Gregory walked her inside. Her grandmother was asleep, her breathing steady. Anna set the small keychain on the bedside table next to her. Gregory stood beside her, his voice barely above a whisper. "I will have someone stay here with you tonight, just to be sure." She shook her head. "You have already done enough." "No," he said softly, "not nearly enough." He looked down at the sleeping woman, then back at Anna. "Your father gave me a second chance to make things right. I will not waste it." She looked up at him, her eyes steady. "Then do not." Gregory smiled. "Deal." As he left the clinic, the night air felt different. The stars were faint, scattered between the clouds, but they seemed to follow him as he walked to his car. He paused before getting in, looking back once more through the window. Anna was sitting by her grandmother's bed, humming softly, her small silhouette outlined by the pale light of the room. For the first time in many years, Gregory Langford felt something like peace. It was quiet, humble, and steady, like the sound of paint drying on canvas, the sound of a life finally learning how to heal. The week before the exhibition, the city began to bloom with spring. The air smelled faintly of jasmine and wet pavement, and the sky carried a soft golden hue that reminded Gregory Langford of the painting that had started everything. He had spent every day at the gallery, preparing for the opening of the Elijah Cole exhibition, but something inside him still felt unfinished. That morning, as he reviewed the display list, one of his assistants entered his office with an envelope. "This was found among the crates, sir," the assistant said. "It looks old." Gregory took the envelope carefully. The handwriting was Elijah's, faded but still strong, written in the same looping script he remembered from old letters. It was addressed simply to G.L. He opened it slowly. Inside was a sketch folded around a note. The sketch showed a quiet street with a lamppost and a man standing under it, holding a small child's hand. The note beneath read, "Every artist paints what he is afraid to lose." Gregory stared at it for a long moment before placing it on his desk. The message felt like both a question and an answer. He knew what he had to do next. Later that afternoon, he drove back to the south side of the city, to the neighborhood where Anna and her grandmother lived. The clinic had discharged the older woman the day before, and when Gregory arrived, he found Anna sitting on the steps outside, feeding breadcrumbs to a group of pigeons. "Mr. Langford," she said, smiling when she saw him. "You are here early. I wanted to bring something to show you," he said. He handed her the sketch. She studied it quietly, her fingers tracing the pencil lines. "That is the street at the end of our block," she said. "Yes," Gregory replied. "He must have drawn it years ago." She looked at the small figure in the sketch. "The little one looks like me." "I think it is you," he said. "He wanted you to remember that he was always beside you." Anna smiled softly. "Grandma says he still is." Gregory nodded. "She is right." They walked together down the narrow street. The afternoon sun poured over the cracked pavement, turning every puddle into a mirror. When they reached the end of the block, Anna pointed to a small wall covered with faded paint. "He used to draw here," she said. "When I was little, he would let me hold the brush." Gregory looked at the wall, now flaking with time. He knelt beside it and brushed away some of the dust. Underneath, faint but visible, were traces of Elijah's strokes, the same warm amber tone that had filled so many of his canvases. "Your father left his light everywhere," Gregory murmured. "Even here." Anna looked up. "Can we fix it?" "Maybe not fix it," he said, "but we can help it live a little longer." He took out his phone and snapped a photograph. "I will have someone preserve this wall so people can see it." She grinned. He would like that. They continued walking, passing the corner grocery where Elijah had once bought his paints. Inside the window, a small poster announced the upcoming exhibition, "The Lost Light, Works of Elijah Cole," opening this Friday at Langford Gallery. Anna stopped to read it. "It feels strange," she said, "like he is coming back." "In a way," Gregory said, "he is." That evening, after dropping Anna home, Gregory returned to the gallery. The workers were still adjusting lighting and labels, But one wall remained empty, the space reserved for the final piece. He decided that the sketch he found that morning should go there. He placed it in a simple wooden frame and hung it beneath a single light. When he stepped back, he realized the composition of the exhibit now felt complete, as if Elijah had guided the arrangement himself. The next day, the grandmother and Anna visited the gallery to see the finished layout. The moment they entered, Anna gasped softly. The colors glowed under the gallery lights, the air humming with quiet reverence. But it was not the paintings that caught her attention, it was a smaller piece near the center, one that had not been there before. It was the sketch of the street and the lamppost, framed simply, placed beside a printed quote. The quote read, "Every artist paints what he is afraid to lose." Anna reached up and touched the frame lightly. "He was afraid to lose me," she whispered. Gregory stood behind her, his voice steady. "And now the world knows he never really did." The grandmother wiped her eyes. "You have done more for him than anyone ever did." Gregory shook his head. "It was her," he said, looking at Anna. "She was brave enough to speak the truth." The older woman smiled. "It takes a child to remind grown men of honesty." As they walked through the gallery together, Anna stopped before the large landscape, the one that had caused the glass to shatter on that unforgettable night. The blue and amber sky seemed even more alive now, like it was breathing. "I think this one should be the last painting people see when they leave," she said, "so they carry the light out with them." Gregory nodded. "You are right again." He signaled to the curator, and within the hour the painting was moved to the final wall by the exit. When the lights dimmed for the evening, the gallery felt like a cathedral of color. Gregory stood quietly, watching Anna's reflection on the polished floor as she walked between the paintings. The sound of her shoes echoed softly, like a heartbeat in the silence. She stopped at the exit and turned to him. "You said truth never hides," she said. "But sometimes it waits." "Yes," Gregory replied, "and you helped it find its voice." She smiled, her eyes reflecting the warm glow of the lights. "Then maybe that is what art is for, to help truth wait until someone is ready to listen." He nodded slowly. "I think your father would agree." As they stepped outside into the cool night, the city lights stretched like brushstrokes across the sky. Anna looked up at the stars and whispered, "He painted them better." Gregory laughed softly. He taught them how to shine. The wind carried their laughter down the street, mingling with the faint hum of traffic and the promise of what was yet to come. The morning of the exhibition arrived with a calm sky and a soft wind that carried the scent of spring blossoms through the streets of downtown. The Langford Gallery stood bright and tall, its glass doors reflecting the sunlight like rippling water. Inside, everything was ready. The walls gleamed, the lights were warm, and the name Elijah Cole shone proudly above the main entrance in elegant gold lettering. Gregory Langford stood near the entrance, straightening his tie, though he rarely wore one these days. He had not felt nervous in years, but today his hands would not stay still. This was not another business event or charity gala. This was something different. It was redemption made visible. When the first guests began to arrive, their voices filled the gallery like gentle waves. Collectors, critics, and art students gathered around the paintings, whispering about the color, the emotion, and the man behind them. Some recognized the name, others did not, but all of them paused longer than usual before each piece, as if the art itself had asked them to slow down. At the far end of the room, Anna stood beside her grandmother, both dressed neatly, though simply. The little girl's hair was tied in soft braids, and her small hands clutched the silver keychain shaped like a star. She looked around in quiet awe, her wide eyes catching every flicker of light on the walls. Gregory approached them, his smile gentle. "You both made it," he said. "We would not miss it," the grandmother replied. "Elijah would have wanted her to see this." Anna looked up at him. "Is this really for him?" Gregory nodded. "It is for him, and for you, because you are the reason it happened." She smiled shyly, glancing around at the crowd. "There are so many people. They came to listen to the story your father left behind," Gregory said. "He painted truth, and tonight, people will see it." Across the gallery, a group of journalists prepared their cameras. One of them approached with a microphone. "Mr. Langford," she said, "how did you discover these paintings?" Gregory hesitated, then looked toward Anna. "It was not me who discovered them," he said. "It was a child who saw what the rest of us had forgotten." The journalist turned to Anna. "You must be very proud of your father." Anna nodded. "He taught me that light always finds its way, even in the dark." The reporter smiled. "That is a beautiful thought." When the camera lights turned off, Gregory led Anna and her grandmother to the center of the room, where a small podium had been placed. He stepped up and took a deep breath. The crowd quieted. "Good evening, everyone," he began. "Tonight is not about me or this gallery. Tonight is about a man who taught me that art is not what we own, but what we share." Elijah Cole was a friend, a teacher, and a father. His work lived quietly for too long. It took the courage of a little girl to bring it back to the light. He looked down at Anna, whose eyes shone. Her voice reminded us that truth does not vanish when people forget it. It simply waits for someone brave enough to speak it. The audience applauded warmly. Cameras flashed. Anna's grandmother held her close, whispering a prayer under her breath. When the applause faded, Gregory continued, his voice soft. "There is something I want to do before this night begins." He turned to Anna. "Would you like to help me?" She looked startled but nodded. He handed her a small, cloth-covered frame. Together, they pulled the cloth away to reveal a new plaque beneath the largest painting, the blue and amber skyline that had started it all. The plaque read, "Dedicated to the truth that light never belongs to one person. The Elijah Cole Foundation, founded by Gregory Langford and Anna Cole." The room went silent for a moment, the weight of the words settling like sunlight. Then applause rose again, stronger this time, carrying with it the sound of release and gratitude. Anna blinked back tears and looked up at Gregory. "He would be happy," she whispered. "Yes," he said, "he would." The rest of the evening unfolded like a slow, beautiful song. Guests moved through the gallery with quiet reverence, pausing at each painting. Some left donations for the new foundation. Others simply stood in silence, moved by the story that hung in every brushstroke. Near the end of the night, Anna slipped away from the crowd and wandered toward the back of the room, where the sketch of the lamppost hung. She stood before it, the silver keychain still in her hand. Gregory found her there, standing perfectly still. "He drew that from memory," she said without turning. "He told me once that the lamppost was hope." Gregory smiled softly. "Then it has done its job." She looked up at him. "Do you think people can really change?" He thought for a moment before answering. "Yes," he said, "if they are brave enough to listen to the truth they once ignored." She nodded, as if storing the words away for later. "Then you changed," he exhaled slowly. "Maybe, or maybe I just started remembering who I was before I forgot." She smiled again. "Grandma says that is the same thing." The gallery lights dimmed slightly as the final guests began to leave. Outside, the city sparkled like a canvas of living color. Gregory looked at the paintings one last time, the hues glowing softly in the fading light. "You did it, Elijah," he whispered. "You brought us home." Anna slipped her hand into his, small and steady. Together they walked toward the exit, the reflection of the paintings following them in the polished floor. Behind them, Elijah Cole's art remained alive, luminous, and free, a testament to truth, forgiveness, and the light that refuses to die. The night after the exhibition, the city was quieter than usual, as if even the streets needed time to breathe. Gregory Langford sat in his study surrounded by newspapers spread across the desk. Every headline carried Elijah Cole's name. "Forgotten artist's work revealed by billionaire philanthropist," one read. Another said, "Lost paintings ignite public emotion." Yet the article that caught Gregory's attention the most was not about him or the gallery. It was a small column tucked in the back pages that mentioned Anna, "the little girl who remembered," the headline said. The words made him smile faintly. He folded the paper carefully, placing it beside a framed photo of the exhibition's final night. Anna had stood beneath her father's painting, the light catching her face, her expression filled with wonder and quiet pride. But Gregory knew that the story did not end with applause. Truth had a way of testing those who carried it. The next morning, the phone on his desk rang before sunrise. It was his legal advisor, sounding uneasy. "Mr. Langford," the man began, "there is something you should know." We have received a claim from a collector in Europe. He is asserting ownership of several of the paintings displayed at the exhibition. He says they were sold to him years ago by a third party, and he has documents to prove it. Gregory's jaw tightened. A third party? Yes. A man named Victor Haynes. It appears he sold the works without authorization. Gregory leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. That name sounded familiar. It had been years, but he remembered. Victor was the same art broker who had once delivered Elijah's painting to him, the one he had accepted without question. The pieces were authentic, but the path they had taken was not. Now, after all these years, the past was demanding an explanation. Prepare a meeting, Gregory said firmly. I want to see those documents myself. When he arrived at his office later that morning, the legal team was already waiting with the files spread across the table. The papers were old, yellowed at the edges, but the signatures were clear. Elijah Cole's name appeared nowhere, only Victor Haynes's forged authorization marks. Gregory's stomach twisted as he realized what this meant. The paintings had been stolen from Elijah long before the fire. They had been sold under false names, scattered across the world, and hidden in private collections. He looked out the window at the city below. He tried to tell me, he murmured. He wanted me to see it, and I never did. His advisor cleared his throat gently. Mr. Langford, the claim could become public. It may look like the foundation acquired the paintings illegally. We did not, Gregory said, his voice sharp, but we will prove it. Later that afternoon, he drove to Anna's apartment. She opened the door, her smile wide as always. Mr. Langford, she said cheerfully, but her smile faded when she saw his expression. What happened? He crouched so that he was at her level. There is something I need to tell you, Anna. Some people are saying your father's paintings were sold years ago by someone else, and they are trying to take them back. Her eyes widened. Take them back? But they belong to him. Yes, Gregory said softly. They always did. That is why I will not let them be taken again. She frowned. What can we do? We can find the truth, he said. The man who sold them left records. Somewhere, there has to be proof that your father never gave them away. Her grandmother stepped into the doorway, her expression calm but firm. If there is truth to be found, she said, then we will help you find it. Gregory nodded gratefully. That evening, he and Anna returned to the gallery after it had closed. The lights were dim, and the soft hum of the air system filled the empty space. Together they walked through the exhibit, stopping before the landscape of the blue and amber sky. This one, Gregory said, was the first piece I ever saw from him. I bought it through a broker named Victor Haynes. I never questioned it. I thought it was just business. But your father trusted that people would protect his work, not steal it. Anna looked up at the painting. Then we have to make them listen now. Her voice was steady, filled with the same quiet determination that had changed everything from the start. Gregory smiled faintly. You sound like him. They spent hours searching through the archives stored beneath the gallery, old ledgers, receipts, shipping records, and correspondence files. The air smelled of dust and time. Anna sat cross-legged on the floor beside a stack of boxes, flipping through yellowed folders. Suddenly, she paused. Mr. Langford, she said, holding up a faded envelope. This has his handwriting. Gregory took it carefully. The letter was addressed to Victor Haynes, written by Elijah himself. The ink was faint, but the message was clear. You cannot sell what was never yours. Art is not a product. It is a promise to truth. Gregory exhaled, relief flooding through him. This is it, he said. This proves everything. Anna smiled, her eyes bright. Then they cannot take it away. No, he said. They cannot. The next day, the documents were sent to the legal office. By afternoon, the news began to spread quietly among collectors and journalists. The supposed claim collapsed before it could reach court. The paintings were safe. That evening, Gregory called Anna and her grandmother to tell them. When Anna answered, her voice was full of light. So it is over? She asked. For now, Gregory said. But it reminded me of something your father once told me, that truth needs guardians. He was right. Then we will be the guardians, Anna said. You and me, Gregory smiled. Yes, you and me. After they hung up, he stood by his window watching the city lights flicker below. Somewhere, he imagined, Elijah was watching too, his spirit smiling quietly through the colors of the night. The world had tried to forget him once, but now his truth had found its voice, carried not by power, but by a child's courage and a promise finally kept. The weeks following the legal victory passed quietly, but peace did not come easily. Gregory Langford noticed that although the gallery was still full of visitors, the air had changed. The story of the stolen paintings had stirred the media, and while most celebrated the truth being revealed, some began to question Gregory's role in the past. Articles appeared online with headlines like, "Did the billionaire know?" and "How much did Langford profit from forgotten art?" He read each one in silence, his reflection pale in the glow of the computer screen. He knew how stories twisted when people searched for blame. It was not anger that filled him, it was regret. He had built an empire on precision and control, but the truth had come to him through chaos, through a child's voice that refused to be ignored. Late one night, he walked through the empty gallery, the echo of his footsteps following him. Elijah's paintings looked back at him like silent witnesses. He stopped before the portrait of himself, the one Elijah had painted years ago, and whispered, "You knew this would happen. You wanted me to face it." The next day, the storm reached the front doors of the gallery. A small group of reporters waited outside, their cameras flashing. Gregory faced them calmly. "Mr. Langford," one asked, "is it true you acquired some of Elijah Cole's paintings through a questionable deal years ago?" Gregory did not deny it. "It is true that I once bought a painting without asking the questions I should have asked," he said. "But I have spent every day since making sure his name and his truth are never buried again." The reporters exchanged glances, surprised by his openness. "So, you admit guilt?" another asked. Gregory shook his head slowly. "I admit ignorance, and I will not let ignorance be my legacy." The clip aired that evening, and while some viewers criticized him, others began to understand the honesty behind his words. That honesty reached people far more deeply than denial ever could. The next morning, Anna arrived at the gallery holding her school backpack and a folded newspaper. "Mr. Langford," she said, her eyes worried, "are they mad at you because of my dad's paintings?" Gregory smiled gently. "No, Anna. People are not angry because of your father's art. They are angry because truth makes them think about their own mistakes." She frowned. "That does not seem fair." "It rarely is," he said, "but truth is still worth defending." She placed the newspaper on his desk. On the front page was a picture of Gregory and her standing beside her father's work. The headline read, "The Girl Who Spoke for Her Father and the Man Who Listened." Anna looked up at him. "Then maybe people will remember the good part too." "They will," he said softly. "Because of you." That afternoon, the gallery was busier than usual. Students, teachers, and local artists filled the rooms. Anna walked among them proudly, answering questions about her father's work as if she had been doing it all her life. Gregory watched from across the room, feeling something he had not felt since Elijah was alive: hope. A man in a dark suit approached him quietly. "Mr. Langford," he said, handing him a folder. "We just received word from the National Art Commission. They are recognizing Elijah Cole posthumously with the honor of artistic contribution." Gregory exhaled deeply, the news washing over him like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Thank you," he said. That evening, he visited Anna's home to share the news. The grandmother opened the door, smiling tiredly but kindly. "She is inside, doing her homework," she said. Anna looked up from the small table where she was writing. "Mr. Langford, did something happen?" He sat down across from her. "Something good," he said. "Your father is being recognized by the National Art Commission. It is an award given to artists who change the way people see the world." Her eyes widened. "They know his name now?" "They do," he said, "and they will never forget it again." She smiled, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Grandma says when people remember your name for something good, you never really go away." "She is right," Gregory said. "He will always be here in you, in these paintings, and in everyone who learns from his truth." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the faint hum of the city outside. Then Anna asked softly, "Do you think people will forgive you too?" The question caught him off guard. He looked down at his hands, the same hands that had once signed away deals without thinking, the same hands that now worked to rebuild what was lost. Maybe, he said honestly, but forgiveness is not something you earn with words. You earn it by what you do next. Anna thought about that for a long time before saying, "Then you already started." Gregory smiled faintly. "Maybe I did." The next morning, a letter arrived at his office from a local art school. The students had been inspired by Elijah's story and wanted to name their new scholarship program after him. Gregory felt his chest tighten with emotion as he read it. It was working, the truth was spreading, touching new hearts. Later that day, he met with Anna at the gallery again. She was sketching quietly in the corner, her face focused, her small hand steady with the pencil. He watched her for a while before asking, "What are you drawing?" She turned the paper around. It was a picture of a man and a child standing beneath a lamppost. The light from the lamp stretched outward, reaching farther than the figures themselves. "It is called The Promise," she said. Gregory smiled, recognizing the echo of her father's touch in her work. "It is beautiful," he said. "It is honest." As the day faded into evening, they stood together looking at the painting of the blue and amber sky, the one that had started everything. "It still feels new every time I look at it," Anna said. "That is what real art does," Gregory replied. "It keeps showing you what you forgot to see." She looked at him with a gentle smile. "Then maybe that is what you are doing now, remembering what matters." Gregory nodded. "Yes, Anna, I think that is exactly what I am doing." Outside, the last light of day touched the glass windows of the gallery, and for the first time in years, Gregory Langford felt completely certain that he was where he was meant to be, not as a billionaire, not as a collector, but as a man finally brave enough to keep a promise. The following month brought new life to the gallery, and new purpose to the people connected by Elijah Cole's story. Gregory Langford arrived early each morning before the crowds, walking through the halls in silence, letting the paintings greet him like old friends. The once cold marble floors now felt warmer somehow, alive with meaning. The foundation had begun receiving letters from students, artists, and even families who said Elijah's work reminded them to keep believing in quiet courage. Gregory read every letter himself, often late into the night, a cup of tea cooling beside him as he underlined words that carried truth. One morning, he found Anna sitting on the gallery floor, sketchbook open, knees tucked to her chest. She was drawing the portrait of her father, but not from the photograph displayed in the exhibit. She was drawing from memory. The lines were soft, the expression gentle, full of warmth. "You are getting better every day," Gregory said, walking closer. She looked up and smiled shyly. "I think I can almost draw him the way he used to look at me." Gregory nodded. "That is the secret of art, Anna. It is not about what you see. It is about how you remember." She turned back to her sketch. "Grandma says when you draw someone you love, they never really go away." "Your grandmother is right," he said. "And your father would be proud of what you are doing." That afternoon, a team from the National Art Commission visited the gallery to discuss the upcoming ceremony for Elijah's posthumous award. The chairman, an older man with silver hair, shook Gregory's hand firmly. "Your efforts have restored not just these paintings, but a man's dignity," he said. "Few people would do that." Gregory's eyes softened. "It was not only me. A little girl found her father's truth, and I simply followed her lead." The man smiled. "Then she should be on the stage with you when we present the honor." Gregory agreed immediately. Later that evening, he visited Anna's apartment to tell her the news. She was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, a glass of milk beside her, her pencil tapping rhythmically. When she saw him, her eyes lit up. "Mr. Langford, did something happen?" "Something good," he said, sitting down. "Your father is being given a national award next week, and the commission wants you to stand beside me when it is presented." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Me?" "You," he said, smiling. "Because this happened because of you." Her grandmother's voice floated from the stove. "I told you, Anna, truth always finds a stage." Anna laughed softly. "But I do not know what to say." Gregory looked at her thoughtfully. "You do not need to prepare anything fancy. Just speak from your heart." That is what your father did, even when no one listened. She nodded slowly. Then I will tell them thank you for remembering him. That is perfect, Gregory said. On the day of the ceremony, the auditorium was filled with light and quiet excitement. Rows of people from across the country had gathered to honor Elijah Cole, the artist who once painted in obscurity but whose work now hung in galleries and classrooms. Gregory stood backstage in a dark suit, adjusting his cufflinks nervously, while Anna stood beside him holding a small folded paper. She was wearing a simple white dress and shiny black shoes. Do you think he would be here if he could? She asked softly. He is here, Gregory said. Every time you speak his name. When they walked onto the stage, the audience rose in applause. Gregory accepted the framed medal on Elijah's behalf, then stepped aside and guided Anna toward the microphone. The room fell silent as she unfolded her paper with trembling hands. Her voice was small but steady. My father used to say that art is how we keep love alive when words are not enough. I think he painted so that people could feel what he felt, even if they never met him. He told me once that every color means something. Blue was for truth, and gold was for hope. I think he would be happy to know that people can see both now. Her voice wavered slightly, but she continued. Thank you for remembering him, and thank you for listening when I said his name. The audience stood again, clapping until the sound filled the hall like a heartbeat. Gregory felt his chest tighten with emotion as he watched her bow politely and step back. When the ceremony ended, dozens of guests came to congratulate them. Reporters asked for photos, and one journalist asked Anna how it felt to speak for her father. She smiled shyly. It felt like he was standing beside me. That night, after the long event, Gregory drove Anna and her grandmother home. The sky outside was clear, the stars bright over the quiet city. Anna leaned against the window, watching the world blur past. Do you think people will still come see his paintings years from now? She asked. Yes, Gregory said, because truth does not age. She nodded sleepily. Then I will make more paintings too, so he will have company. Gregory smiled at her reflection in the window. You already are. When they reached the apartment, the grandmother thanked him for everything. You have done more than most men would dare, she said. Gregory shook his head. It was her courage that did this. I just followed where it led. Before going inside, Anna turned to him one last time. Mr. Langford, she said, when I grow up, I want to be like you. He looked down at her with kind eyes. No, Anna, he said, be like your father. The world needs more of him. She grinned and nodded before disappearing inside. Gregory stood for a moment on the sidewalk, the sound of their laughter echoing faintly through the doorway. Then he looked up at the stars again, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Somewhere above, he imagined Elijah smiling, his hands no longer trembling with struggle but steady with peace, painting a sky that never fades. The following weeks after the award ceremony brought a gentle rhythm to life that felt almost sacred. The gallery continued to draw crowds, but now it was more than a showcase. It had become a place of healing. People came not only to admire Elijah Cole's paintings but to feel the quiet truth they carried. Gregory Langford often arrived early, unlocking the front doors himself before the staff arrived. He liked those first few moments when the morning light spilled across the floors and touched the edges of Elijah's work. The colors seemed alive, shimmering like soft whispers of forgiveness. One morning, as he stood in front of the large landscape of the blue and amber sky, he noticed a small bouquet of wildflowers placed beneath the frame. Tucked inside was a note written in a child's careful handwriting. It read, "Thank you for giving my dad back to the world." The signature was Anna's. Gregory smiled, feeling something tender move through him. Later that afternoon, he met Anna and her grandmother for lunch near the gallery. They sat outside a small café, the kind with mismatched chairs and the smell of fresh bread floating through the air. Anna sipped her hot chocolate while drawing shapes on a napkin with a dull pencil. "Mr. Langford," she said suddenly, "my teacher asked me to write about a hero for school, and I wrote about my dad." Gregory smiled. "He deserves that. But she said I had to pick someone alive," Anna continued, frowning slightly. "So I wrote about you too. I said you helped the world remember him." Gregory paused, touched, and a little humbled. "That is very kind, Anna, but heroes are just people who do what is right when it is hard." Your father was brave enough to paint truth, and you were brave enough to speak it. I only followed your lead." She grinned. "Then maybe we are both heroes." The grandmother chuckled softly. "The world needs more of that kind of thinking." They spent the rest of the lunch talking about art, about the upcoming plans for the Elijah Cole Foundation's first youth art program. Gregory explained how the foundation would provide materials, mentorship, and space for children who wanted to learn to paint but could not afford it. "We are calling it the Light Project," he said, "because your father believed that art is how people find light inside themselves." Anna's eyes sparkled. "Can I help?" "I was hoping you would," Gregory said. "You can be our first student and also help welcome the others. You can tell them your father's story." "Then I will tell them the truth," she said proudly. "That light never dies, it just waits." Her grandmother nodded approvingly. He would have liked that. That evening, Gregory returned to the gallery to finish paperwork for the foundation. As he worked, he noticed the janitor carefully dusting the frames with a soft cloth, moving slowly as though each piece were fragile. Gregory approached him. "Thank you for taking such care with them." The man smiled faintly. "It is easy to take care of something that means something." Those words stayed with Gregory as he locked up for the night. Outside, the air was cool and clean. The streetlights flickered, and somewhere a musician played a slow tune on a saxophone. For the first time in a long while, Gregory walked without the weight of guilt pressing on his shoulders. The next day marked the official launch of the Light Project. The gallery buzzed with energy as families and children filled the space. Easels stood in rows, paintbrushes and bright colors waiting for small hands to bring them to life. Anna stood at the front with a name tag that read, "Junior Mentor." She wore her favorite yellow sweater and held a small palette with more paint on her fingers than the brush. Gregory watched her from across the room as she knelt beside a little boy struggling to mix colors. "You do not have to make it perfect," she told him. "My dad said art is about how it feels, not how it looks." The boy nodded, his face lighting up. Gregory smiled, realizing that the spirit of Elijah Cole was very much alive in that moment. Later in the afternoon, he gathered everyone near the large landscape painting. "This," he said to the group, "is the reason we are here." Elijah Cole believed that beauty could change people, that truth could live in color. This foundation will make sure his belief keeps shining in others. Every painting you make here will be part of that light. The children clapped, some holding up their colorful hands proudly. Anna looked up at him and whispered, "He would be happy right now." Gregory looked at her, his eyes soft. "I think he is." After the event ended and the families left, Gregory walked through the quiet gallery again. The smell of paint lingered in the air. On the table where the children had worked, he noticed a small canvas left behind. It was a painting of a man and a girl holding hands, standing beneath a lamppost. The light stretched wide across the ground, just like in Elijah's sketch. He turned it over. On the back, written in a child's handwriting, were the words, "For Mr. Langford, because you saw the light too." He stood there for a long time, the simple message sinking deep into his heart. That night, as he left the gallery, he paused at the door and looked back one last time. The paintings glowed softly in the dim light, alive with warmth and memory. Outside, the moon hung low over the city, casting silver shadows on the pavement. Gregory whispered to the empty street, "Thank you, Elijah, for showing me that truth never fades." And somewhere in that quiet night, beneath the hum of the city, it felt as if the world itself nodded in agreement. The morning after the Light Project opened, the city seemed brighter, as if the sun itself had decided to stay a little longer. Gregory Langford arrived at the gallery early, carrying a cup of coffee and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that something good had finally taken root. The scent of fresh paint and paper still lingered from the day before. The walls were no longer just a tribute to Elijah Cole's past, they had become a living classroom. Rows of small easels now stood where crowds once gathered, each marked with the name of a child who had painted there. Gregory walked through the space slowly, pausing to admire the children's work. Some pieces were messy and wild, others careful and deliberate, but all of them had something Elijah would have recognized: truth. On one wall, he noticed a small drawing done by Anna. It showed a man and a little girl walking under a sky streaked with blue and amber. Beneath it, she had written, The light you keep is the light you share. Gregory smiled, knowing that those were her father's words. That afternoon, Anna arrived at the gallery with her grandmother. She carried her worn backpack, stuffed with sketchbooks and crayons. "Good morning, Mr. Langford," she said cheerfully. "I brought new drawings." "Let me see," he said, kneeling so he could look at them at her level. She spread the pages across the table. One was of her father painting near a window. Another was of Gregory standing beside her with a paintbrush in his hand. "You made me look very serious," he teased. She laughed. "That is because you always look serious when you are thinking." Her grandmother chuckled softly from behind her. "She studies people the way her father did." Gregory nodded. "That is what makes her special." Later, as Anna painted in the corner, a young woman entered the gallery. She wore a long beige coat and carried a notebook. "Excuse me," she said politely. "I am writing an article about the Light Project. May I ask you some questions?" Gregory agreed and led her toward one of the benches. The woman opened her notebook. "Many people see this foundation as a redemption story," she began. "A man with wealth and influence helping the legacy of a forgotten artist. But what does it mean to you personally?" Gregory paused, watching Anna across the room as she concentrated on her painting. "It means I finally learned that power means nothing without compassion," he said. "I once believed art was something you own. Now I know it is something you serve." The woman wrote quickly. "And what about the little girl? The one who rediscovered her father's work?" Gregory's voice softened. "She taught me what honesty looks like when it is too young to hide." The reporter smiled faintly, closing her notebook. "That is beautiful. Thank you." After she left, Gregory turned back to the easels. Anna had finished her painting a sunrise spilling light over a city skyline. "It looks alive," he said. She tilted her head. "It is supposed to be morning. Morning means new chances." "That is a good lesson," Gregory said. "Maybe you should teach the others that tomorrow." She grinned. "I can do that." When the class ended that day, the children packed up their brushes and left with their families. Anna stayed behind to clean. As she wiped her hands on a cloth, she looked up at Gregory. "Do you ever miss him?" she asked. "Your friend, my dad." He nodded slowly. "Every day. But now I miss him in a good way. The kind of missing that makes you thankful you met someone worth remembering." Anna thought about that for a moment. "Grandma says love never leaves. It just changes rooms." Gregory smiled. "Then I suppose your father just moved to a bigger one." That evening, after they left, Gregory stayed alone in the gallery, turning off the lights one by one. But when he reached the large landscape, the blue and amber sky, he stopped. In the quiet glow of the emergency light, the painting looked different, as if the horizon itself had deepened. He stepped closer and noticed something he had never seen before, a faint sketch beneath the paint, hidden in the layers. It looked like two figures holding hands beneath a lamppost. His breath caught. It was the same image Anna had painted, the same one Elijah had once drawn years ago. Gregory realized then that Elijah had hidden it intentionally, a secret message under his masterpiece. It was not just a symbol of light, it was a signature of connection, a reminder that every act of love leaves a trace. The next morning, he invited Anna and her grandmother back to the gallery. When they arrived, he led them straight to the painting. "Look closely," he said, pointing to the faint image beneath the sky. Anna gasped. "That is him, and me." "Yes," Gregory said quietly. "He left you here, inside his art. He wanted you to be part of the light." Anna reached out as if to touch the air between them and the canvas. "He never stopped painting us." Her grandmother wiped her eyes gently. "He never would." Gregory knelt beside Anna. "Do you see now? You are the story," he began. "Every time you paint, you keep him alive." She nodded slowly, her eyes shining. "Then I will never stop." Later that day, the gallery staff documented the discovery, taking photos and preserving the image carefully. The news spread quickly, and soon people came not only to see Elijah's paintings but to witness the hidden sketch, a secret left by a father for his daughter. That evening, as Gregory locked the doors again, he paused in front of the painting. The colors seemed to shimmer more brightly than before. He whispered to the quiet room, "You always knew what you were doing, Elijah. You were teaching us how to see." Outside, the first stars began to appear, small and steady against the evening sky. Gregory walked down the steps toward the street where the lampposts glowed in the distance. For the first time in years, he felt that his own light, long dimmed by regret, was shining again, reflected through the eyes of a little girl who reminded him every day that truth, like art, never dies. The discovery of the hidden sketch beneath Elijah Cole's masterpiece changed everything once again. News spread beyond the city, reaching magazines, television stations, and even international art journals. Headlines spoke of "The Secret in the Sky" and a father's final message. People from everywhere came to see the faint image of a man and child beneath the layers of color, and the Langford Gallery became more than a museum. It became a symbol of truth rediscovered. Gregory Langford watched the growing crowds with quiet awe, but inside he felt something even deeper, a peace that had eluded him for most of his life. He often found himself standing before that same painting long after the visitors left. The gallery lights dimmed, and only the soft hum of the air remained. He would trace the faint outlines of Elijah's hidden sketch with his eyes, and think about how much a single act of love could outlive time itself. One afternoon, as he was reviewing the next phase of the light project, Anna came running into his office holding a small envelope. Her cheeks were flushed, her braids bouncing as she spoke. "Mr. Langford, look what I found." She placed the envelope on his desk. It was old and yellowed at the edges, with Elijah's handwriting across the front. Gregory's hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside was a letter addressed to the one who keeps the light. It read, "If you are reading this, then you have chosen kindness over comfort. Art belongs to no one, but truth belongs to those brave enough to protect it. Whoever you are, do not let the world turn beauty into a business. Keep the light alive." Gregory exhaled slowly, his eyes misting over. He looked at Anna. "He wrote this for you," she said softly. "No," Gregory whispered. "He wrote it for us." That evening, he gathered the gallery staff and read the letter aloud. The room fell silent. Even the hum of the lights seemed to fade. "From now on," Gregory said firmly, "every exhibition we hold, every project we fund, will begin with this message. It will remind us why we are here." The following week, the letter was framed and hung near the entrance of the gallery beside Elijah's portrait. Visitors would stop to read it before stepping inside, some pausing to wipe away tears. Meanwhile, Anna continued her art classes through the light project. She had grown more confident, her small hands steady, her imagination wide and fearless. One day, Gregory found her painting a scene of a sunrise spreading over a city skyline. "You love mornings," he said. "Why?" She smiled. "Because mornings always forgive the night." Her answer struck him like quiet thunder. Your father would have said the same thing. That weekend, the gallery hosted an event for children from across the city. The theme was Hidden Light, inspired by Elijah's secret sketch. The children's paintings lined the walls, each one bright, wild, and alive. Gregory gave a short speech. "Light can hide," he told them, "but it never disappears. Your art proves that truth can always be found again, even when it feels lost." The applause that followed was soft but heartfelt. After the event, Anna handed Gregory a small canvas wrapped in brown paper. "For you," she said. He opened it carefully. It was a portrait not of him as the powerful businessman the world knew, but of him as she saw him. In the painting, he was sitting beside the blue and amber landscape, a soft expression on his face, light reflecting gently across his shoulders. Beneath it, she had written 4 words, "He kept the light." Gregory felt his throat tighten. "This," he said quietly, "is the greatest gift I have ever received." Anna grinned. "Then you have to hang it in the gallery." "I will," he said, and he did. The portrait was placed near the entrance, beside Elijah's letter. Visitors began to notice it right away. Some recognized him, others did not, but all stopped to look at the expression in the painting, the calm of a man who had finally made peace with himself. One evening, after everyone had left, Gregory stood alone before the 2 pieces, Elijah's letter and Anna's portrait. The words, "Keep the light alive," glowed faintly in the warm lamplight. He thought about the long path that had brought him here, the mistakes, the silence, the rediscovery. "You did it, my friend," he whispered. "Your truth changed everything." As he turned to leave, he noticed Anna's small sketchbook on one of the benches. She had forgotten it. He opened it gently and smiled. Inside were dozens of drawings, scenes from the gallery, her grandmother's kitchen, the children painting, even a small doodle of him holding a coffee cup and looking confused at a spilled brush. But on the very last page, there was something different. A drawing of Elijah, Anna, and Gregory standing together beneath a vast golden sky. Beneath the drawing, she had written, "Families are not always born. Sometimes they are found." Gregory closed the sketchbook slowly, his eyes glistening. Outside, the city lights shimmered across the glass windows, their glow mingling with the reflection of the paintings inside. He turned off the gallery lights, leaving only the faint illumination of the entrance lamps, where the letter and the two portraits hung side by side. In that quiet moment, the air felt full of presence, Elijah's, Anna's, and something greater than both. As Gregory stepped outside, he whispered to the night, "The light is safe now." And somewhere, as the wind carried his words through the streets, it felt as though the city itself answered back, its glow warm and unending, as if promising that the light would never fade again. As spring turned into summer, the city settled into a peaceful rhythm around the Langford Gallery. The once cold building that had been known only for wealth and exclusivity had transformed into a living sanctuary for creativity and hope. Children's laughter now filled its halls on weekends, their small hands carrying brushes and colors instead of smartphones and distractions. Every wall spoke of a story, every brushstroke carried the echo of Elijah Cole's legacy, and every visitor felt the warmth of something far deeper than art truth. Gregory Langford arrived earlier than usual that morning, carrying a small box in his hand. The air outside was still cool, and the sunlight filtered through the tall glass windows like ribbons of gold. Inside, the gallery was quiet. He walked toward the main exhibition room, where Elijah's blue and amber sky painting hung, and placed the box gently on a nearby table. When he opened it, he revealed a bronze plaque, newly engraved with simple words, "Dedicated to every child who reminds the world that truth can still be kind." He planned to mount it beneath the painting later that day. As he stood back to admire it, he heard the soft sound of footsteps behind him. It was Anna, her backpack slung over her shoulder, her smile bright. "You are early," Gregory said. "Grandma woke up early to make breakfast, and I could not sleep," she replied. The light was already coming in. He smiled. "Your father used to say the same thing, that light is always the first to arrive and the last to leave." She walked toward the box and read the plaque. "Did you write that?" "I did," he said. "Do you like it?" Anna nodded slowly. "It sounds like him." "It sounds like you too," Gregory added softly. That day, they were expecting a group of new students from a community school that had joined the Light Project. The gallery buzzed with quiet preparation. Easels were lined up, paints organized, and the scent of turpentine and paper filled the air. Anna helped arrange brushes while Gregory adjusted the lighting. "Do you ever think my dad would believe all this happened because of his paintings?" she asked. Gregory paused. "I think he would have believed it because he always believed in light, even when he could not see it." "Then maybe that is what hope is," she said thoughtfully. "Believing before the light comes." "Yes," he said. "That is exactly what it is." When the students arrived, Anna introduced herself confidently. "My name is Anna Cole," she said, her voice clear. "My dad was an artist, and he taught me that art is not about showing off, it is about showing truth. So that is what we are going to do today." Gregory stood in the background, watching her with quiet pride. The way she spoke carried her father's conviction, but also something new, her own courage. The children began painting, and the gallery filled with chatter and color. One boy painted a bird soaring over a mountain. Another drew the city skyline glowing in sunset tones. Anna moved from table to table, offering encouragement just as Gregory had taught her. When the session ended, one of the students, a shy girl with a scar across her cheek, approached Anna and said, "I never painted before, but when I did, I felt like I was not invisible anymore." Anna smiled. "That means you found your light." The girl nodded. Gregory watched them, his heart heavy and full at the same time. That evening, after everyone left, he sat in his office writing a speech for an upcoming charity event to raise funds for the Light Project's expansion. But as he wrote, His thoughts drifted toward Elijah. He found himself whispering aloud, "You see this, my friend? Your light did not just survive. It multiplied." He glanced at Anna's small painting, the one she had made of him beside the blue and amber sky, and smiled. Suddenly, there was a knock at his door. "Come in," he said. It was Anna, holding 2 cups of hot cocoa. "Grandma made extra," she said. "She said you work too much." He laughed and accepted the cup. "Tell her she is right." She sat across from him, swinging her legs lightly. "Mr. Langford, can I ask you something?" "Of course," he said. "Do you ever get scared that people will forget again? About my dad? About what he tried to say?" Gregory thought for a long moment before answering. "People forget facts, Anna, but they do not forget feelings. Your father's work makes people feel something true, and that kind of truth does not fade. It just waits for the next person to feel it." She nodded, her expression calm. "Then maybe that is what my job is now, to help people feel it." "I think that is a wonderful job," Gregory said. The clock ticked softly in the background. The gallery lights dimmed, leaving only the warm glow from the lamp on his desk. "Do you ever miss your old life?" Anna asked suddenly. "The big office, the meetings, the fancy things." Gregory smiled faintly. "Sometimes I miss the quiet that came before I understood what mattered. But I do not miss who I was. I think this," he gestured around the room, "this is who I was supposed to be." Anna studied him for a moment, then said, "You sound like my dad again." He laughed gently. "Maybe he is still teaching me through you." Before she left that night, Anna looked up at the blue and amber painting one last time. "I think the sky looks different every time I see it," she said. Gregory nodded. "That is because you keep changing too. When you grow, you see more light." She smiled, her small hand waving as she left. After she was gone, Gregory stood alone in the gallery, the silence wrapping around him like an embrace. The plaque gleamed softly beneath the painting. The faint outlines of Elijah's hidden sketch seemed to shimmer beneath the surface, as if the figures themselves were alive in the glow. Gregory whispered to the empty room, "We kept the light, Elijah. We kept it just the way you meant us to." And outside, beyond the tall windows, the city lights flickered like 1,000 tiny brushstrokes across the night, proof that the light had indeed found its way home. Summer deepened across the city, painting the skyline in gold and copper each evening. The Langford Gallery was busier than ever, yet it still managed to feel like a sanctuary, a place where silence spoke and color breathed. Gregory Langford had begun to notice that the gallery no longer belonged to him alone. It belonged to everyone who had walked through its doors and left a piece of themselves behind. It was no longer just an institution of art, it was an inheritance of compassion. One morning, as the sun filtered through the tall windows, Gregory watched Anna arrive with her grandmother. She carried a new canvas in her arms, wrapped carefully in brown paper. Her eyes glimmered with excitement. "Mr. Langford," she said, "I made something new for the light project." "Then we must see it," he said, smiling. She unwrapped the paper, revealing a painting of the same blue and amber sky that had become her father's symbol. But this time, in the center, she had painted 2 hands reaching toward each other, one large and one small, with a single beam of light connecting them. "I call it the bridge," she said. Gregory studied it carefully. "It is beautiful, Anna. What made you paint this?" "Because light is not something we keep alone," she said. "It needs 2 sides." Her words filled the room like quiet wisdom. "Your father would be proud of that truth," Gregory said. "And I am too." That afternoon, they hung the painting beside her father's, the bridge of light stretching between them, as if the 2 pieces had always been meant to meet. Visitors noticed it immediately. Some whispered, others smiled softly, as if they could feel the connection in their hearts. Later that day, while Anna helped clean brushes, a man entered the gallery. He was older, with a gray beard and gentle eyes. He approached Gregory with hesitation. "You must be Mr. Langford," he said. "I was a student of Elijah Cole a long time ago." Gregory's eyes widened. "You knew him personally?" "Yes," the man said, his voice roughened by time. "He taught me when I was young. I lost touch with him before he passed. I only recently learned what happened, and I wanted to thank whoever brought his name back." Gregory shook his hand firmly. "You do not need to thank me," he said. You can thank his daughter. She is the reason all of this exists." The man looked across the room and saw Anna, her small figure silhouetted by the sunlight as she washed a brush at the sink. His eyes softened. "She looks just like him." "She carries his light," Gregory said quietly. The man nodded. "Then the world is in good hands." Before he left, the man handed Gregory an envelope. Inside was an old photograph of Elijah, standing beside a young group of students in an art classroom. On the back were words written in Elijah's familiar script: "Teach them to see the light inside others." Gregory placed the photo on his desk, his heart swelling with both sadness and gratitude. That evening, when the gallery closed, he showed the photo to Anna. "That was my dad's class," she said softly. "He used to tell me stories about them." "He left you another piece of himself," Gregory said. "Maybe we should display it." She nodded eagerly. Yes, people should see where he started. So they framed the photograph and hung it near the children's art section, labeling it "The Beginning of the Light." Over the next few weeks, the gallery received letters from people who had known Elijah, old friends, former students, even strangers who said his art had changed the way they looked at the world. One letter in particular came from a woman who wrote, "I saw the painting of the bridge, and I cried. It reminded me that kindness is not weakness. It is strength that refuses to fade." Gregory read it aloud to Anna and her grandmother one afternoon. "People are feeling what your father wanted them to feel," he said. "He would be so proud." The grandmother smiled warmly. "It seems he is still teaching the world, even from heaven." As time passed, the Light Project began expanding to other cities. Gregory worked tirelessly, partnering with schools and community centers to open more spaces where children could paint freely. He often took Anna with him on these visits, letting her speak to other children about her father. She always began her stories the same way. "My dad taught me that truth is not heavy, it is just bright." Everywhere she spoke, people listened. One evening, after returning from a long day of travel, Gregory stood on the gallery balcony overlooking the city. The sky was streaked with the same hues Elijah had loved to paint. Anna joined him, holding 2 cups of lemonade. "You can see almost the whole city from here," she said. "Yes," Gregory replied. "It looks alive." "Do you ever think he sees it too?" she asked quietly. "I do," Gregory said. "And I think he is smiling right now." She leaned on the railing beside him, her small hand resting near his. "Do you ever miss who you were before all this?" He smiled faintly. "No, Anna. I think who I was before needed to disappear so I could find this version of myself." "Then I am glad you found him," she said. He looked at her, his voice gentle. "So am I." As night settled, the city lights flickered like stars below them. The glow from the gallery behind them spilled onto the balcony, painting them both in soft gold. "The bridge," Anna whispered, looking toward the glowing window. "It looks like it is really shining." Gregory nodded. "That is because it is real light, Anna, the kind that comes from truth." She smiled. "Then we will keep it shining." And as the two stood there in quiet unity, the hum of the city blending with the soft wind, it seemed as though Elijah Cole's promise, the one written in paint, in words, and in memory, had finally completed its circle. The light he had begun had crossed generations, found new hands, and refused to fade. It had become what it was always meant to be, a bridge that would never break. The following autumn arrived with cool winds and golden leaves sweeping across the city streets. The Langford Gallery stood quietly at the edge of downtown, its glass doors reflecting the amber sky. Inside, the walls still shimmered with color, but something new was happening, something that Elijah Cole had once dreamed of. The Light Project had expanded to 3 more cities, and now the gallery was preparing to host its first traveling exhibition titled Light Between Us, featuring works from children across the country who had been part of the Foundation's programs. Gregory Langford oversaw every detail himself. He had changed over the months, his posture softer, his voice calmer, his heart lighter. The once imposing businessman had become something different, something truer. He stood near the entrance reviewing the exhibit layout when Anna ran up to him carrying a clipboard nearly as big as her. "Mr. Langford," she said excitedly, "the boxes from Chicago just arrived. There are so many paintings." Gregory smiled. "Then we better find space for all that light." Together they walked through the gallery as volunteers unpacked the artworks. Children's paintings lined the walls, filling the room with vivid skies, open hands, and faces full of hope. Anna stopped in front of one that showed a small house surrounded by swirling colors. "This one looks like my old neighborhood," she said softly. Gregory read the label. "Painted by Daniel Ortiz, age 9. He wrote that it is called Home After Rain." Anna nodded. "I like that. It looks like everything is clean again." "Maybe that is what your father wanted too," Gregory said, "for people to feel washed clean when they looked at his art." She looked up at him with a thoughtful expression. "You talk about my dad like you still see him." Gregory smiled faintly. "In a way, I do. Every time you walk into this room." That afternoon, as the last of the paintings were hung, the grandmother arrived carrying a basket of food. "I thought you both could use some lunch," she said warmly. They sat together near the back window overlooking the city, sharing sandwiches and laughter. "You know," the grandmother said, "Elijah always said art was his way of talking to God. I think he would be happy knowing people are finally listening." Gregory nodded. He found his voice again. "Thanks to both of you." The grandmother reached across the table and touched his hand gently. "You help too, son. Do not forget that." The simplicity of her kindness struck him deeply. After lunch, Anna spent the afternoon helping younger students who had come to tour the gallery. She explained the stories behind her father's paintings in her own words, her small voice carrying honesty that could silence a crowd. "My dad said colors are just feelings that learned how to breathe," she told one group. Gregory listened from a distance, feeling a quiet pride he could not describe. Later, after the children had left and the gallery grew silent again, Anna approached him holding a flyer. "Mr. Langford, I heard that we are going to have an opening speech for the exhibition. Can I say something?" "Of course," he said. "You should. But I do not want to talk about my dad this time," she said. "I want to talk about what comes next." Gregory's eyes softened. "Then that is exactly what you should do." In the days that followed, they prepared for the grand opening. The press called it one of the most meaningful exhibitions of the year, but to Gregory and Anna, it felt like a celebration of promise rather than fame. On the night of the event, hundreds of people gathered under the warm glow of chandeliers. The air was filled with soft music and the faint smell of oil paint and varnish. Anna stood on a small stage near the front, holding a microphone that seemed too large for her hands. Gregory stood behind her, watching. The crowd fell silent. She took a deep breath and began. "When I was little, I thought art was just something my dad did to make our walls less empty. But now I know art is what makes people less empty inside. My dad used colors to tell the truth, and truth makes people brave." The Light Project is not just about painting, it is about remembering that light does not belong to one person. It belongs to everyone who believes in kindness. Her voice trembled slightly at the end, but the audience erupted in applause. Gregory felt tears rise in his eyes. As the sound washed over them, he leaned down and whispered to her, "You just did for them what your father did for me." She looked up and smiled. "Then I think we are both doing our job." After the speeches ended, people walked slowly through the gallery, stopping at each piece, taking pictures, but also standing in silence, letting the paintings speak for themselves. One woman touched her heart and said softly, "This feels like home." That night, after the guests left, Gregory and Anna stood outside under the streetlight in front of the gallery. The city air was cool, carrying the faint scent of rain. "Do you think the light will ever go out?" Anna asked quietly. "No," Gregory said, looking down at her. "Because people like you will keep it burning." She nodded. "Then maybe someday there will be galleries like this everywhere." "There will be," he said, "and they will all start with what you and your father taught the world." As they stood there, the streetlight flickered, casting a warm glow that wrapped around them both. For a long moment, it felt as if Elijah's presence surrounded them, a silent approval, a soft reminder. Gregory looked up at the sky. "You were right, Elijah," he whispered. "Light only grows when you give it away." Anna reached for his hand, and together they walked down the quiet street, their shadows stretching ahead like a bridge made of gold. Behind them, through the gallery windows, the paintings glowed faintly in the dark, whispering to the world that truth, once found, never disappears. The days after the Light Between Us exhibition were filled with an afterglow that seemed to linger in every corner of the city. Newspapers called it a triumph of humanity. Art critics described it as a revival of compassion in modern art, and people traveled from other states just to see what one little girl's courage and one artist's forgotten truth had created. But for Gregory Langford and Anna Cole, it was not about fame or success. It was about peace. Each morning, they arrived early before the crowds, walking through the gallery as sunlight poured across the marble floors like warm honey. Gregory would stop before Elijah's original painting the blue and amber sky, and Anna would stand beside him quietly, holding her sketchbook. "It feels different every day," she said one morning. "That is because you are growing," he replied. "The light grows with you." Over time, the Langford Gallery became more than a single space. It became the heart of a growing movement. The Light Project had spread to 7 cities, and Gregory was in talks with educators to integrate art and empathy into public school programs. But with growth came challenges. One afternoon, during a meeting with a group of investors, a man in a gray suit leaned forward and said, "Mr. Langford, your foundation is doing wonderful work, but you could double your funding if you partnered with corporate sponsors. Imagine, the Light Project presented by international brands, it would reach millions." Gregory looked down at the table for a long moment, then said quietly, "No, that is not what this is about. This began with a promise to keep art honest and truth unbought. I will not turn Elijah's light into a billboard." The room went silent. One of the younger partners spoke gently. "You could still do good with the money." Gregory nodded. "But if doing good means forgetting why we started, then it is not good anymore." Later that evening, when he told Anna about the meeting, she said, "My dad would have said the same thing." "He already did," Gregory said with a small smile. "He wrote it in his letter, 'Do not let the world turn beauty into business.'" Anna nodded solemnly. "Then we keep it pure." Over the next few weeks, Gregory began planning a permanent exhibition called Light Eternal, dedicated to artists who used their work to tell the truth rather than please the world. Anna insisted that part of the gallery be reserved for children's art only. "Because they see what adults forget," she said. The new exhibition was scheduled to open in winter, on the anniversary of Elijah Cole's passing. Preparations were almost complete when one morning, Anna burst into Gregory's office, holding a small, worn journal. "Mr. Langford, you have to see this. Grandma found it in one of Dad's old boxes." She handed it to him, and he opened it carefully. Inside were sketches, notes, and unfinished thoughts written in Elijah's handwriting. One page read, "When I paint the sky, I am not painting what I see. I am painting what I hope will be there tomorrow." Another said, "If light has a sound, it must be the laughter of children." Gregory turned the pages slowly, his throat tightening. "He was writing about the Light Project before it even existed," Anna said softly. "He knew it would come one day. Maybe he was waiting for you to finish it," Gregory said, his voice gentle. "And you did." The journal became the centerpiece of the Light Eternal exhibit. It was placed in a glass case surrounded by Elijah's paintings and Anna's bridge artwork. People would stop and read the words, their faces softening as they felt the intimacy of his thoughts. During the opening night of the new exhibit, Gregory gave a speech. Elijah Cole once wrote that art is how we leave light for those who come after us. Tonight, that light is here in every brushstroke, in every child who dares to tell the truth, and in the courage of a daughter who reminded us all what love looks like when it refuses to die. The audience rose in applause, but Gregory's eyes were on Anna. She stood beside her grandmother in the front row, her hands clasped, tears glistening like stars in her eyes. After the event, as guests filtered out, Anna approached him. "You did it again," she said softly. "No," Gregory replied. "We did." She smiled. "He would be happy." "He already is," he said. That night, after the gallery closed, Gregory stood alone before the journal, the soft light of the room casting a golden glow across the glass case. He traced the air above the words, whispering, "You were right, my friend. Light does not end, it transforms." When he turned around, he saw Anna asleep on a bench, her sketchbook resting on her lap. He covered her with his jacket and sat beside her quietly, listening to the soft hum of the lights. For a moment, He closed his eyes, and it felt as though Elijah's voice whispered through the stillness. Keep teaching them to see. Outside, snow began to fall, thin and slow, blanketing the city in white. From the window, the gallery lights shone through the snowfall, glowing softly like a lantern in the night. Gregory smiled and murmured to the quiet room, "We kept our promise." And in that still, gentle moment, surrounded by color and memory, and the faint laughter of a dreaming child, it was as if the world itself was painted anew, a world made whole again by light that had refused to be forgotten. The winter snow continued to fall softly over the city, blanketing rooftops and quiet streets. Inside the Langford Gallery, the world felt still, almost sacred. The Light Eternal exhibit had been open for several weeks, yet every day people came in steady numbers, families, students, and strangers who left in tears or silence, moved by the story of an artist who had loved truth more than fame. Gregory Langford arrived early each morning, brushing snow off his coat as he unlocked the door. He had grown older, but there was a kind of youth in his spirit now, the kind that comes when a man finally learns peace. The warmth of the gallery greeted him like an old friend. He turned on the lights one by one, watching Elijah's blue and amber sky come alive again on the walls. It always felt like a sunrise no matter what time of day it was. As he walked past the glass case holding Elijah's journal, he paused. His reflection merged with the words written inside. "Keep the light alive." He whispered them aloud, letting them settle into the still air. That same morning, Anna arrived wearing her favorite red scarf and holding 2 steaming cups of cocoa. "You beat me here again," she said. "I think the gallery likes you more than it likes sleep," Gregory teased. She handed him a cup. "Then it likes us both." They sat on the bench near the entrance, watching the early visitors trickle in. Among them was a young art student who stood in front of Elijah's painting for a long time, his face full of wonder. Gregory noticed and whispered to Anna, "See that? That is what your father wanted to stop the world long enough for people to feel." She smiled. "Then he is still doing it." Over the next few days, preparations began for a new initiative, the Light Fellowship, a scholarship program that would help young artists who came from difficult backgrounds. Gregory had been working on the details for months, determined to make it a legacy that would outlive them all. One evening, after the gallery closed, he sat at his desk signing the final paperwork. His hand trembled slightly, not from weakness but from emotion. When he finished, he leaned back and looked at the old photograph of Elijah that sat on the corner of his desk. "We did it," he said softly. "Your light has a future now." The next morning, Anna came running into his office, her braids swinging. "Mr. Langford, look what came in the mail." She handed him an envelope with the foundation's logo. Inside was the first official certificate for the Light Fellowship, printed in gold letters. It read, "Awarded in honor of Elijah Cole, whose truth continues to illuminate the world." Gregory smiled, his eyes misty. "Would you like to help me present the first one?" "Can I?" she asked, her face lighting up. "You must," he said. The ceremony was held at the gallery the following week. Children from all over the city gathered, some clutching their drawings, others holding their parents' hands. Gregory stood at the podium, his voice calm and warm. "This fellowship is not about perfection. It is about honesty, the kind of honesty that Elijah Cole painted into every color. It belongs to those who see light where others see darkness." Then he turned to Anna. "And no one sees light better than the girl who found it." The audience applauded as Anna stepped forward to hand the first certificate to a nervous young boy holding a small canvas. "What did you paint?" she asked him kindly. "It is called After the Storm," he said. "It is about when things look broken but are really just starting again." Anna smiled. "Then that is what this is about too." As the crowd cheered, Gregory felt something shift inside him, a deep, quiet gratitude that filled every space grief had once occupied. After the ceremony, when everyone had gone, Anna found him standing alone near the painting of the blue and amber sky. "You looked happy up there," she said. "I am," he replied, "because this is what it was all for." She looked up at the painting, her voice soft. "Do you think my dad knows?" Gregory nodded. "He does. He always did. He painted it into the sky." That evening, as snow began to fall again outside, Gregory locked up the gallery and stood for a moment at the door. The city lights shimmered through the windows, reflecting off the paintings, making the entire room glow. He thought about the first day he had met Anna, the tiny waitress with paint-stained fingers and a truth that broke his world open. He smiled. "You saved me, little one," he whispered to the empty air. From somewhere deep inside the gallery, a light flickered gently, as if answering. A few days later, the Light Project received an invitation from an international art museum in Paris, requesting to feature Elijah's work in a global exhibition on art and humanity. Gregory showed the letter to Anna and her grandmother during lunch. "It seems your father's light is crossing oceans now," he said. Anna's eyes widened. "Paris? That is where he wanted to go someday. Then we will take him there," Gregory said. "We will bring his art, his story, and his light." The grandmother clasped her hands together, tears glimmering. He would be so proud. That night, after everyone left, Gregory sat in the quiet gallery with the letter beside him. Outside, the snow had stopped, and the moon cast silver patterns across the marble floors. He whispered to the stillness, "You see, Elijah, the world is finally listening." And as he sat there surrounded by color and memory, he felt something gentle in the air, a presence, a peace, and a certainty that this journey, born from one act of truth, was far from over. The light was still moving, still growing, still finding hearts willing to carry it forward. The day they left for Paris was clear and bright, the kind of morning that seemed touched by blessing. Gregory Langford stood at the airport gate holding a small black case that contained Elijah Cole's most beloved painting, the blue and amber sky that had changed everything. Beside him, Anna clutched her sketchbook, her eyes wide with excitement and a hint of disbelief. "I cannot believe we are taking Dad's work across the ocean," she said softly. "He always talked about Paris like it was a dream." Gregory smiled. "Then we are going to finish his dream." Her grandmother joined them a moment later, her hand resting gently on Anna's shoulder. "He will be with us every step of the way." The flight was long but peaceful. Anna spent most of the time sketching the clouds outside the window, whispering to herself that they looked like paint on a canvas. Gregory watched her quietly, thinking how she had grown not just taller, but stronger in spirit, carrying her father's legacy with grace. When the plane landed, Paris greeted them with golden light. The city felt alive, humming with energy, yet gentle in its own way. The museum that had invited them stood near the Seine River, its tall glass walls gleaming like water. Inside, curators carefully unwrapped Elijah's painting, handling it with reverence. One of them, a woman with silver hair and kind eyes, turned to Gregory and said, "It is more beautiful than I imagined. It feels alive." Gregory nodded. "That is because it is not just paint, it is truth." The next evening, the exhibition opened. Hundreds of guests filled the grand hall, their reflections shimmering on the polished floors. Elijah's painting was displayed in the center, framed by soft golden lights. Next to it hung Anna's painting, The Bridge. The two connected once again, as if father and daughter were still speaking across time. Gregory stood near the back, watching as people moved closer to the paintings, their faces illuminated by wonder. Anna, wearing a simple white dress, stood with her grandmother in front of the crowd. A museum director handed her a microphone. Her hands trembled for a moment, but when she looked at the painting, her voice steadied. "My father painted light because he wanted people to remember that it always comes back. He said that even the darkest sky has a sunrise waiting inside it. He never got to bring his art here, but I think maybe he was waiting for me to do it for him. So tonight, this is not just his exhibition, it is his homecoming." The room was silent for a heartbeat, and then applause filled the hall like thunder softened by love. Gregory felt tears rise in his eyes. The light from the ceiling reflected off the paintings, spreading warmth across the room. It felt as though Elijah himself was standing among them, smiling quietly. After the event, as the crowd thinned, Anna walked over to the painting and placed her small hand on the edge of the frame. "We did it, Dad," she whispered. "You are finally here." Gregory approached and rested a hand on her shoulder. "He would be proud," he said. She looked up at him. "Do you think he knows?" "Yes," Gregory said gently, "because love always knows when it has been finished." That night, they walked along the Seine, the city lights dancing across the water. The air was cool and full of the scent of rain and distant flowers. Anna skipped ahead, twirling beneath the glow of a street lamp. "Everything here feels like a painting," she said. "It is," Gregory replied. "We are walking inside your father's dream." She turned to him with a grin. "Then I do not want to wake up." He laughed softly. "Maybe you never will." They stopped at a bridge overlooking the river. Anna leaned on the railing, watching the reflections shimmer below. "Do you think the light project will keep going forever?" she asked. "As long as people keep believing in kindness," he said. "It will." She nodded thoughtfully. "Then I will keep painting until I am old. Maybe someday other kids will see my paintings and remember to be kind too." "Then your father's light will have become yours," Gregory said. "And that is how it is meant to be." A few days later, the museum presented a special tribute in Elijah's honor. They unveiled a small plaque beneath his painting that read, "To Elijah Cole, who taught the world that truth is the color of love." Gregory and Anna stood side by side as the curtain lifted. The audience applauded, and Anna reached for Gregory's hand. "We kept the light," she whispered. "We did," he said softly. Years later, when people would talk about that exhibition, they would say it was not just an event, it was a moment when art remembered its soul. They would tell the story of the little girl who revealed her father's hidden sketch, of the billionaire who found his redemption in her courage, and of the light that refused to fade. But in that moment, none of them were thinking about legacy or history. They were simply standing in the glow of something eternal. That night, back in their hotel room, Anna placed her sketchbook on the nightstand and looked out at the city through the window. "It looks like the stars came down to visit," she said sleepily. Gregory smiled from his chair. "Maybe they did. Maybe your father sent them." As she drifted to sleep, the painting of the blue and amber sky rested safely in its case, ready to travel again someday. Gregory sat in the quiet, the moonlight brushing across his face. He whispered one last time to the night, "Thank you, Elijah. You showed me that redemption is not about undoing the past, it is about choosing light anyway." Outside, the city glowed like a living painting, each light a heartbeat, each reflection a promise. And somewhere, beyond the stars, a father's spirit finally rested, knowing his light had not just survived, it had been reborn in the hands of a little girl who believed that kindness could change the world.